Hi everyone, my name is Roy Cornwall and welcome to a Christian channel. This is a fictional story called Terin Trouble with Terin, Part 2. It's the 6th of September, 1:30 in the afternoon. My name is Roy Cornwall. I have a dog named Tippy. If you watch the first episode, you'll find out that some aliens came to our planet and empowered us with great abilities. I'm not even sure what it's called. It's not magical, but I think it's more genetic. I think they've altered us somehow. When we get when we get scared or fearful, we grow into something different. Now, in our last episode, there was a battle on the moon that Tippy and I helped with, and right at the end of that episode, the human general, Canadian general, said to me, he says, "Is there anything we can do for you? Just let us know." I said, "There's a bad neighbor next door making all kinds of noise." That problem went away. They're dropping food for us now. That cuts a lot. I can make it by on my bills now. So they're dropping food in once every 2 weeks for us. Now, the general that came to my home, which I can't tell you his name. I'm under security agreements there. But he showed up about, after this episode, it was about almost 2 years. Now I'm getting up in years. I'm about 29 years old. Yeah. Tippy's older now. He's getting gray on him, right? And the general comes to my door again. And as soon as I saw him at the front door, Tippy started wagging his tail. He wanted a kiss of hugs from him. I invited him in, sat him down just like I did the first time, put the fan on him, shut the curtains so the sun wasn't hitting him. And I said, "What's your trouble this time?" I'm laughing. He says, "Well, we have something to give you, and we need your help." I said, "If I don't give you the help, will I still get the gift?" He says, "Yes." I said, "Okay, what's the gift?" He says, "In my briefcase here, I've got 2 injections, one for Tippy, one for you. And we've already tested this. What it'll do is it'll give you, well, I don't know, people have a long life. We're still testing how long it is, but the people we've done this testing with aren't getting older, and matter of fact, they're getting smarter and wiser, more human as they go." So I said, "So I'll never die?" He says, "As far as we know right now, no, you won't." I said, "Okay, what's the bad news?" He says, "Okay, we've made contact, because we're out in outer space now. You know that, right? You've seen the moon base, you've seen our ships. We're in outer space now." I said, "Yeah." He says, "We've come across a territory of Valerians, they call themselves, and they are human-like, but they look more lizardy. Mostly human, but they have sort of spines on their back. They have a little bit of a snout, and their skin is green. But they have hands that look like humans, and they're same height, same weight, everything." I said, "That's really good, isn't it? Now we're going to have diplomatic relations with this Valerians?" He goes, "Well, they're deciding whether they want to have anything to do with us." Right? I said, "Well, give me all the data on this, all of it." And he says, "Well, we don't really know all that much. This is the first it's happened. I mean, we haven't had time to really even collect data." I said, "Well, why are you at my door?" He says, "We need a diplomat. But we can't convince any of our diplomats to go because it's too dangerous." I said, "Oh, I see." I said, "I'm not going anywhere without Tippy. I'm not going anywhere without Tippy." Tippy looks up at me. He says, "No, you can bring Tippy." He says, "They're going to have to learn that animals are our family." Right? I said, "Well, okay." This sounds like a big decision for someone to make, but I haven't changed into that other being for 2, 3 years now. I feel quite comfortable. I mean, I feel I'm in control of that, is what I mean. So I said, and I'm used to having so many different things happen to me, like, if you change into one of these beings like I do, other things don't bother you too much. So I said to him, I said, okay, well, we'll agree to that, Tippy and I, because I could see Tippy's getting old. I'm going to lose him soon if I don't do something. So the general picks up his phone, calls out to his limousine. Somebody gets out of the back seat with a white coat on, comes in. Now, he injected Tippy first. Tippy didn't even help. He was kind and gentle, this man. And then he gave me a shot in the arm. Right? And on the way, I said, well, I don't know you. You'll have to leave so I can talk to the general. So on the way up the door, he says, oh yeah, in the next 24 hours are going to be unbelievable for you. Okay? So I said, okay, I'm used to crazy things happening all the time. So he leaves. And the general says, look, we have an appointment with these people. It's 1 week from today, Sunday, next Sunday. He says, we've got some nice clothes here for you and Tippy, and we're going to have people come in onto the property to clean Tippy up a bit, because he was always playing in the dirt or something. They washed him down, they clipped his nails, they cleaned his ears for me, and he loved it. He just laid there and let them do it. Got all the mats out of him. He really looked good, right? Now, they put something on Tippy. His arm stuck out through it, almost like you would call it a vest if it was a human, right? But it's the same color. It's blue, the same color as our planet. As I'm wearing, as more or less it wasn't a suit with a tie like you would think. It was more regal looking. This is Saturday now, the day before. The general comes, he says, we're going to leave now. I said, okay. Now, I got all the weapons that I had from the last skirmish out in the barn, so, I went out and I got my sword down the back, and a bunch of other things, a laser pistol and a laser rifle, right? He says, General says, that's just a little bit too much, he says. The rifle, he says, leave the rifle. He said, you can take the sword. They wear swords, you can wear the sword. He says, okay. So, I got a leash now for Tippy, right? Now the leash for the little Tippy is only like a regular dog leash. It's maybe 1 inch round piece of rope, He calls again on his phone, and one of our ships land out back, because I cut a big area there for him, and we get aboard this thing, right? Tippy and I, this is a long trip. This took us 2-3 days. So I found out it wasn't that Sunday, it was the next Sunday. We were there actually early. And we landed. We spent a day in the ship getting programmed more about these beings, how they operate and all that kind of stuff. And because we were early, the Valerians sent a representative out to the ship. And his job was to guide us and show us around, Tippy and I, show us around before the big meeting. So, okay, I got Tippy on the leash, and we're walking around, and I said, what's in this building? Well, that's our medical building. What's in this building? That's our lab where we keep all the knowledge, he says. I said, what's in this building? And he didn't answer me. Okay, I want to know what's in this building now, right? I said, I asked you a question. I said, what's in that building? He says, well, I don't have orders to keep you out of there, but if you want to go, you can go. So Tippy and I on the leash, we walked over through the big door. These doors are rather big for people that are our size, right? And I'm wondering why, right? They had captured other beasts, not dogs, nothing from our planet, But other planets, they capture them, and they were in behind the force fields of every these rooms all the way down. And Tippy didn't like that. Tippy started growling. I said, it's a good thing, to myself I'm saying, it's a good thing you don't swell up when you're mad. Right? So, okay, we get down to the end of the hallway, and there's a cage there. And what I saw turned my stomach. They had humans, young, old, male, female, captured in a cell, starving, dirty, filthy, cold, sick. Right? And I walked up to the cage and my eyes got big like this, right? And Tippy could see I was getting mad, and Tippy could see why, because there's humans in there. He knows a human. So I looked at the guards. I told the guards. I demanded. I said, I'm demanding and giving you a direct order. As a representative of Earth, you put food in that cage and anything else they want. Oh, we got to check this out with authorities and all this stuff, right? Well, I walked over. I clocked the guy. I drove him right to the ground. I said, you get some food and you put it in that cage now. Because the meeting was still 2 days off. Still 2 days off. So I spent my whole time through those 2 days down at the cell talking to the humans. And their story was, these are the alien beings that were taking people from Earth. They come, they land, they take, and they go. Right? Now, every Earthling knows that we've been preyed upon by aliens, and this has got to be them. All right, so Sunday comes, Sunday morning. It's like 9 o'clock, and I'm all dressed up. Tippy's all dressed up. And I walk into this great hall, and now there's a king and a queen, and a young prince there, and a younger daughter there, a princess there. And they're all standing around the throne. The throne's up, elevated, I don't know, 10 feet up with a bunch of stairs going there. And I walked up to the bottom of the, escorted by the guards, to the bottom of the steps, right? And I'm looking up at the king. And the king starts his formal, we're glad you're here and all. I said, can it? I'm still mad. I'm actually fuming. I said, you got humans down in a cage below me? I shook my finger at the king and I said, I demand that you release those people right now. You bring them to this hall, you feed them and give them medical aid and treat them properly. The king looked at me and he says, or what? I said, you don't want to know what the or what is. You don't want to know. So, right away a guard walked over and smacked Tippy. He smacked him right across that good one. And Tippy got scared of this guy because he had a weapon on him. Well, Tippy swelled up. Now, Tippy swells up to the size of the threat. If it's only a small threat, he's not going to swell up to anything bigger than he needs to take care of that threat. But 10 or 12 other guards came to support that one guy, and Tippy swelled up to about, he was about 12 feet tall at the shoulder. He was pretty big. He's bigger than he was in the last episode, right? And I still had Tippy by the leash. By a leash that I had to put on him. It was special. It would stretch. He could break it if he pulled on it, but he knew I had some kind of connection with him. So the king says, "Is this your threat?" I said, "Lord, okay, I forget his name right now, but I said, no, we don't threaten. We don't want you to prey on us anymore. And unless we can come to an understanding, you're going to find out what human wrath is." His eyeballs opened up because Tippy started to growl. And his hair just slowly slid up into a big point like this. It slid up, the width of his body, it slid, his hair was pointed up in a part like that, just as high as his body. So, the king, he doesn't like getting threatened in his own hall. Right? So he called his army in, and about 500 soldiers came in. I said, King so-and-so, I said, you've just made a very wrong decision. He says, what's that? I said, you've just made a human very mad. He says, you don't have hardly any space force. You're soft beings. You don't have any armor on you. He says, you've never battled in another world. He says, why should I fear you? Right? And he dragged out a female that he had that was in the cage, and she was in tough shape, and the guard grabbed her by the hair. Well, normally it takes me to be afraid for me to swell up, and Tippy. But for some reason, I swelled up. Now, as I swelled up, I didn't go to 12 feet. I was more like 20 feet. Because this hall had a lot of people in it. And you swell to the size of the danger. I took my fist and I pounded it on the ground so hard. It cracked the floor. I said, release that woman and do it now. And he just hesitated. He didn't know what to say. So I took a couple of steps to him, and Tippy followed along right beside me. We're both coming towards the king now. He released the girl like this. The girl automatically ran down to me because I still look like a human. It's just I'm really big. And she's holding on to my left leg. I said, now you go down and you get the rest of the humans out of the cells and bring them here. I want to see them right now. Well, he didn't like taking orders like that in front of everybody. But he had no choice because we were going to kill him. Tippy was snarling and snapping his teeth at open air, hoping he can catch anything coming by. He was mad. He knew why I was mad, and I was flaming. I was never mad in the last skirmishes. But in this one, I was mad. And I said, I'm looking at the children. And I berated the king right in front of everybody. I said, look what you're doing to our children. How would you feel if I went out and started eating your children? He says, well, don't try that. He says, you have our armies and our Air Force to deal with. I said, you don't tell me what to do. Tippy started growling. And at that point, because all the humans were on the one side of the hall up against the wall, right, and the people are working on them, giving them food and health. About 500 military men had entered, but they were on the other side. Now Tippy came between the humans and the military, and the king finally lost his temper, and he said attack. So they attacked. Tippy likes to do this. He lets the front line show itself, and then he jumps over the front line right into the middle of them, right? And I did the same thing. And I was actually using one Valerian to clobber another Valerian. I had one of these. It didn't take long for Tippy and I to go through 500 beasts. Now there was obviously blood splashed everywhere and people moaning and crying and everything. So when the battle was over, I ran over to the king, right up to his face. I said, you want us to be involved with you? I'm a heartbeat from declaring war on you right now. He says, no. He says, we'll take care of this. He says, there's been a misunderstanding. He says, we'll never take another human ever again. And we're going to aid these people, and we're going to get them all back to their families. And I said to him, well, what about all those other animals down in the that you're collecting from every planet? I said, that's got to stop immediately. You take all those animals and you put them back on their planet and leave them alone. He says, the king says this, he says, how many on earth are like you and Tippy? I said, that's for me to know and you find out. You'll find out, I said. If you don't do what I tell you to do, you're going to find out. He says, okay. Now, the general was standing off to the side, listening to the whole thing. He agreed with what I was doing, right? So, Well, to make a long story short, we got all the humans, every one of them. And Tippy and I, we searched that whole planet to see if there was any more. And there wasn't. It was just these. But there was about 300 of them. These people have been taken from our planet for a millennium. There was generations that were born in the cage. People were born so. All right. I said, they got into the ship, and the ship went back to Earth. Well, I stayed on that planet because I wanted to make sure they were going to let the animals loose, right? Tippy's huge. He's a nasty beast, more nasty than any of the beasts in the cage. When he walked down that corridor, every beast in that cage lowered his head and gave him homage. I said, now, open up all these cages. I said, but they'll kill us. No, I won't kill you. I said, we're here to stop that. I said, open the cages. And there was bedlam for a bit. Till Tippy howled. He went, ow, like a wolf does, only big, long, loud, man. It was loud. And every alien animal stopped and turned and looked at Tippy. I said, now they're going to be good. You feed them all, every one of them. You feed them. We already fed them. I don't care. Feed them twice as much as what you've given them. And when they're fed and you look after their injuries, we can't go near them. I said, Tippy and I are here now. We would walk their doctor up to each individual one that was hurt. They all got on ships and they went back to their planet. Right? Now, the threat is gone. They're trying to comply. Tippy and I swell back down. I'm 6 foot. Tippy's almost the size of a Labrador. And I went back to my quarters. And Tippy and we got cleaned up and we had some food and stuff. Now, the king wanted to summon me to talk to him, right? And I said, I'm on your planet, but you got to send somebody from your planet to our planet to learn our ways. He goes, what do you mean? I said, well, your son and your daughter, send them with me and we'll go back to Earth. And we'll teach them everything that we don't know about Earth. And we'll find a boy and a girl on Earth that will be willing to come here. And you can teach them everything about you. He stopped for a moment. He says, that doesn't sound like it's too bad an idea. Now, the queen didn't want the children to leave her. But the king says, no, this is best. How long will you go for? I said, well, try for 1 year for a while. And then the kids can come back for a while. And then we'll do it again. And then we'll do it again. Till they're comfortable, they know us. So, at this point, I'm saying to the king and the queen, I says, look, I'm sorry for all this. I'm sorry because we killed like 500 of their people. But I said, you started this. You were taking our people. This is your fault. He sort of shook his head like that and said, yeah. He says, we won't hold it against you. He says, but just don't do it again, please. When Tippy howled that time, it literally shook the castle everywhere. Tippy was a magnificent beast. I really loved it when he got into the second bigger form. Now, the children of that planet all came out to see us, but they were afraid to come up. But I said, Tippy, go make friends. Tippy's running around, wagging his tail, licking the hands of these people. It didn't take long for all the kids to want to hug and kiss Tippy. Right? You know what dogs are like. They make friends, right? And so all the children, there was a lot of them, I don't know, 1,000 of them. They all walked us out to our ship. I remember waving goodbye, and Tippy sitting there up beside me waving goodbye. I'm waving goodbye. And we closed the door and we left. We went back to Earth. I'm saying to the general on the way back to Earth, I said, do you think that they're going to still take humans? The general looked at me and says, I don't think so, not as long as you're around. I think we sufficiently scared these people. They thought we were toothless, and then they They saw Tippy and I, and they probably figured everybody on Earth was like that. They landed in my backyard. It sounds funny to me every time I say it, but they did. I got out, and Elizabeth ran out of the house to see us. Are you all right? You know, and all that stuff, and hugging and kissing Tippy and I. Right now, the general was there, and the people on the ship there was attaches, advisors, and all kinds of people from the ship that wanted to come to Earth. So they saw all of this happening, right? The general says, I can't let these beings loose on the planet. They'll get killed. There's piranha, shark, alligators. You know, we got to teach them. So we're going to get. The general got back on the ship, and they flew off to another location. A week later, I asked him, I said, how are my friends? I've taken care of these people. I'm not just letting them come to Earth. I went and saw them regularly, so did Tippy. And when they saw me, they all got excited and happy because they knew that Tippy and I were honorable, loving people at heart. Just don't mess with a human. Thanks, everybody. That's an ongoing story. It's going to be ongoing for a while, until we can get to an end, the end of it. But that's the story of meeting the Valerians. And life is so strange, it's crazy. Just when you think you got a handle on it, and you know, I've seen everything I've done, and you know, life has nothing for me. Something like this happens. Blessings, everybody. Stay kind and prosper. Bye-bye.